First order of business is to approve the minutes.
Madam Chairman, I have read the minutes and find them to be in order, and without objection, I make a motion for them to be approved.
Second that.
Very good. Commissioner Gurley was second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you. Health Department, welcome.
Commissioners and guests, good evening. Tonight I'll be presenting the Health Department report of community health outreach and providing COVID-19 updates, and we have a lot of updates to go over since our last meeting. So if you will, at this time, please take a look at your December 2021 community report of health outreach. Our three columns label protect, promote, and improve once again start to increase as we have been able to get out a little bit more into the community. However, due to the surge of COVID-19, we have delayed a lot of the activities, but we are planning to do our annual community baby shower that we do annually. It's going to be held virtually this year. So for about 5 years, we were doing it in person with Patterson Park Community Center. Last year, we did a drive-through baby shower, and this year we have moved to a virtual baby shower. So we are adapting to the times, given that we do not want to put any of our expecting families in harm's way with COVID-19. This virtual event will be held February the 8th, 9th, and 10th, and so there will be virtual classes that will be held, followed by the 12th and 19th. We'll be giving away the diaper bags and the door prizes, which will be provided by United Way of Rutherford and Cannon counties at our health department. So more information will be delivered in regards to that event. Our health education meeting and events, they have been participating with the TN Strong team meetings, also providing education and prevention information about HIV and AIDS, and then also talking about hand washing, as hand washing is very important as we're going through this pandemic, and then providing some more education with the Borough Diaper Drive and Rockville High School. Moving on from our community health outreach report and moving on to our COVID-19 updates. As we all are aware, COVID-19 numbers have begun to rise here in Rutherford County, and we will continue to partner and engage with other healthcare organizations as we try to combat this COVID-19. We are eternally grateful to the City of Laverne Mayor Jason Cole for offering the city's multi-purpose building located at 5093 Murfreesboro Road to provide an additional testing site on the north end of the county with assistance from CH Consulting. This secondary location also relieves some of the stress on our health department sites that we currently have the State Farm Operations Building, thanks to Mayor Ketron. Since October the 11th, CH Consulting has assisted with operations at the Laverne site, and we will continue to provide testing, which will be COVID-19 drive-through testing Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Additionally, they have opened back up on Saturdays and Sundays, so they had stopped for a moment, but we have opened back up Saturdays and Sundays on the north end of the county from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. COVID-19 testing is also still being conducted by the Rutherford County Health Department at the State Farm Operations Building, thanks to you all's help and support, located at 2500 Memorial Boulevard. Presentations of symptoms is not required to get tested, and those being tested at the drive-through site should remain in their vehicles. Staff-administered PCR tests are available Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. Self-administered rapid tests, which is something new, are available from 8:30 to 12 Monday through Friday at the State Farm Operations Building. So previously we were giving out the Everlywell PCR tests. We have, as of last week, ran out of those tests, and the state has provided us with rapid tests. So those rapid tests can be conducted and taken home, and they will get their results within 15 minutes. Additionally, we will also provide these rapid tests at our health departments in both Murfreesboro and in Smyrna from 8:30 to 4 while supplies last. Once again, no appointment is necessary. However, the department has received approval for children and uninsured to get the PCR test completed first. Additional testing sites can be located at covid19.tn.gov. There are also several pharmacies, doctor's office, and urgent care centers that are offering COVID-19 tests, but all do not have them and will not provide them if you do not have symptoms. So I would ask for people to call in advance if you're looking to be tested at another location. Along with testing, the Rutherford County Health Department will continue to follow through with all public health investigation that goes along with positive cases and their contacts 7 days a week. We recommend following the updated CDC guidelines to measure if you test are positive or come into contact with someone who tests positive. The latest guidelines can be assessed by looking at cdc.gov/coronavirus. As far as our vaccination efforts go, currently our health department is still only offering Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines for first, second, and booster doses. And Dr. Mack will talk a little bit more about the booster doses as a lot has changed. Our hours of operations are Monday through Friday from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. And this is a change as we were offering vaccinations throughout the entire day. But as of this coming Monday, January the 31st, we will be moving all vaccination efforts back to the Rutherford County Health Department here in Murfreesboro, located at 100 West Burton Street. Right now, we're seeing about 20 to 30 people being vaccinated, and that's something that we can handle at the health department so that we can relieve up some of that space over at State Farm and be able to provide more access for testing. For individuals who did receive the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine and or the Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, they can come to our health department to receive the Pfizer vaccine after their initial series. Individuals are also encouraged to check vaccines.gov to find a location that is offering their preferred COVID-19 vaccine, and appointments are encouraged but not required. As a reminder, COVID-19 vaccines are free. And as of yesterday, the number of single reported vaccines in Rutherford County is 413,214. So a little bit over 14,000. Of all eligible residents, we have a little bit over 55% of the county that has been vaccinated. For Rutherford County, it seems as the transmission rate, of course, with COVID-19 and total cases is at its highest point since the pandemic has actually started. And hospitalizations do seem to be declining, but deaths appear to be staying at about the same level, and that's something Dr. Mack and I was just speaking about. And so Dr. Mack is going to provide you all with a little bit more updates as far as the booster and then kind of what she's seeing in the medical side of the health department and COVID-19.
So as you guys probably know, the booster shots are 6 months after your second shot, and you can mix and match those. If you had Moderna, you can get Pfizer or vice versa. That's up to your personal preference. Both of them are very effective. So I think it's, if you really want Moderna and Pfizer's available and Moderna's not, I would just go for it, because I think we're seeing clinically anyhow, the fully immunized and boosted people are doing very well. Their illness with the Omicron variant tends to be pretty mild. That's why I think it spreads so easily, is because people don't really think they have anything other than maybe a seasonal cold. And then they get tested and they're often shocked, and they tend not to be unwell. This Omicron variant, hopefully it's starting to wane in all the other states, particularly the northern U.S. states. We're seeing a drop in cases for the first time in a long time. Not here yet, but we were always a little bit behind. Now, in terms of deaths in the county, I've noticed, I keep track of the, as your medical examiner, I also keep track of deaths and do cremation permits. So what I've seen through the entire COVID kind of process, this is just anecdotal, but as things peak, I see the deaths go down, and then I see them start to rise again as people are either getting well or not getting well. So I've had the last couple of weeks has been a lot of extra deaths, it seems, cause of death being COVID, which tells me that we're getting to the point where we're going to start to slide back down and we're getting ahead of it. That kind of sounds like a somber way of describing the statistics, but that's just the way I've seen it over the patterns in the last in the last 2 years. Obviously, really encouraging patients to get their booster, because those folks are just not getting as sick as people who are not boosted. If you look at the ICU statistics across all the local hospitals, usually see 1 or 2 in the ICU that are not vaccinated, the rest are vaccinated, and 1 or 2, the rest are all unvaccinated. The Omicron variant is, at three days from contact, you can become infected. It's way different than the first one. There's a new variant coming out. I don't know whether you guys have heard about that yet. It's not here. It's in a couple of other countries, but it tends to be kind of a washed-down version. So it seems that it's weakening as we go. We just have to keep our fingers crossed. So we just have to get ahead of it, do what we need to do, and follow the rules.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions for the Health Department? I do just have one. So on the last information that I had was that the State Farm lease was through February 1. So are we extending that?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So in talking to Chris, he said we were going through, and I think last discussion we had, LaShawn was going through February 1, and then we were moving everything to the location here. And what I told State Farm was that we would just do testing only. So we'll close the north door. So everything will move back to the current location for vaccinations and continue to do testing. And I think it's through February 28th. We good?
Last time, though, we voted to extend the lease through February 1. Do we need to vote to extend the lease through the 28th, or?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because that will go to the full commission just to extend that lease.
Very good. And let's take a vote on the report. So all in favor for accepting the Health Department report, please say aye. Oh, I guess I need a motion. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead. Sorry. I was rocking on. We got to get to these charter schools. Yeah.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. No? Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, ladies. We appreciate y'all so much. Good luck in February. Thank you. Okay. Community care, I understand you all didn't meet. Community care didn't meet in December?
We did not.
Oh, didn't in January. Okay.
We did not, but since that time, we have met with the director, and we have met with the contractor, Johnson and Bailey, or the architect, excuse me, and so we'll be going in front of the board for community care at the next meeting and getting permission to sign the contract and moving forward with a new 24-hour daycare facility so we can get that thing on the road and get it up. I think Veronica, having been in that business many years for that, she has some contacts around the state. We're looking for somebody to come in, a third party, to actually run it, because we're used to senior citizens running facilities as opposed to youth. So we'll get all this worked out within the next 30 days and come back to you at the next meeting.
Any questions about community care? Ms. Carroll, do you have anything you want to add? No? We're good? Okay. All right. I'll accept a motion to accept the community care report. That was a first and a second from Phillips and Cook. Very good. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? No. Very good. Okay, so I'm sorry, I did move quickly on over to community care. So we do need a motion to extend the State Farm lease through February 28th. So I'll entertain a motion for that, please.
Second.
Very good. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Awesome, thank you. All right, special projects. Ms. Jolly could not be here tonight, but she did email us the special projects report. This is just the money coming in, money going out. I made a couple of notes that I'll just ask Doug about when he gets up here. So we've got a couple of projects that we're probably getting close to closing out. But anybody have any questions about that? The special projects report? Thank you. Oh, very good. All right. We will not take a vote on that. We'll wait till Doug gets up here and we'll take a look if we've got any questions for him. All right, school board, welcome. Come on up.
Would you like Doug to answer that question now?
On the projects?
Yeah.
Yeah, my question was on Laverne Middle Annex. We've already opened it, Plainview Elementary, and I know these usually lag about a year or so because bills come in late. And Plainview especially has been open for a while.
That's correct, and I was actually working with engineering, that's perfect timing for your question.
Excellent.
We're actually working towards closing both Laverne Middle and Plainview Elementary out, and that will be an amendment coming before this body in the near future to
Great.
close that out.
Thank you.
All right, we got two amendments here. One amendment is 141. This is the amendment for United Way Atlas Family Assistant Grant. This amendment budgets for fiscal year.
Mr. Sproull, hold one moment. Sir.
Um,
Mr. Gurley has that for us.
The amendments are not on my computer. Are they on everyone else's?
Okay, so I have it on mine.
Drop down. The school board report.
You got an extra one? Commissioner Gurley, we got a paper here if you need it.
Wayne, you don't have it? Do you have it? Okay.
This is the same information that you emailed to us last week and I had already forwarded to this body, so I don't think there's anything different than what was sent to you last week. So
Yeah.
we'll move forward, but if anybody has any questions or if you're not following along, just let us know. Go ahead, Mr. Spurlock.
All right, now this is fiscal year 21-22 expenditures of the fully funded United Way Family Assistant Grant. This was previously approved by the Board of Education. The multi-year United Way grant funds one Atlas Family Liaison position and the associated non-payroll costs for this position. This liaison will coordinate with our Atlas program families to help these students connect with the resources in order to help them stay in school during the time in their lives that may be one of the most challenging. This motion is to amend the 2021-22 general purpose school budget as presented for a total of $82,300 budget for the United Way Family Assistant Grant funding. I will say one of the reasons for this is this grant that we'll be using is because our Atlas program has grown substantially over the last several years. And as we go forward, and I think the grant is approximately 2 to 3 years, we will move it into the Atlas federal funding.
All right, since the two motions are two different funds, we'll take these separately. So I'll entertain a motion to accept this amendment. Rick was there. All right, you give us a roll.
Commissioner Key? Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes, thank you.
All right, the next one is in Fund 143. This is authorization for a skill level step increase for Rutherford County hourly nutrition employees. Currently, there's about 50 open hourly positions in our school nutrition department with minimal applicants. Rutherford County Schools is not unique with the staffing shortages in these types of positions, and food service employers throughout the Rutherford County are struggling to maintain adequate staffing. With the USDA continuing to provide breakfast and lunch free to all students, the meal participation for our students has increased dramatically to an average of over 40,000 meals served daily out of our cafeterias. Currently, the school nutrition staffing shortage is placing a great burden not only on the remaining nutrition staff at our schools, but also our principals, our assistant principals, our instructional staff, and even some of our teachers have filled in to help serve our students at mealtime as well. In an attempt to both attract and retain nutrition staffing, it is requested that the hourly Rutherford County food service employees be increased one skill level on an hourly schedule for classified employees, with the pay increase to be effective at the pay period of January 29th and with the paycheck date of February 4th. This approximately raises their hourly rate up to $1.05 an hour. Motion to approve this skill step increase for Rutherford County Schools hourly nutrition employees related to budget amendment for Fund 143 in the amount of $307,241 for additional current year school nutrition fund revenue as presented.
And just for clarification, Mr. Spurlock, you do have this money in your budget?
We do, due to the fact we're serving a lot of lunches.
All right, any questions on the motion? Yes, Commissioner Phillips.
Mentioned it's increasing a dollar an hour.
$1.05, yes.
From what to what?
13, starting pay, in that step is $13, currently $13.27. It'll be $14.32.
They're full-time positions.
Yes, sir.
Part-time too.
And part-time.
I'm on, I don't know how to say this other than I'm in favor of this, but I don't know. We're struggling with sheriff's deputies, okay? And we can't undoubtedly sit around and say, okay, let's pay sheriff's deputies more. And I'm afraid of some negative reaction from Public Safety Department as it relates to, we've been asking for these for years and years and years. We're 30 deputies short. We can't raise their pay increase. So I guess I'm looking at it incorrectly as trying to tie these two things together. We can't raise our sheriff's deputies. We can't do it. But all of a sudden, we hear this for the first time.
Mr. Spurlock, if you would, let me jump in on that for just a second.
One thing about that we probably should have made this a little more clear is a large percentage of these are part-time. They're not getting any benefits, no health benefits, none of that stuff.
I thought I asked that question, was it full-time?
Full and part-time, but the larger percentage of them are part-time.
Once again, I'm not opposed to this, and I'll vote for it, but it's last night, probably the fourth or fifth month in a row, we're losing deputies. And not only are we losing them to surrounding counties simply because of our pay schedule, but how do we react to that? Raise this fund. What's tomorrow's newspaper going to look like? Pay cafeterias workers, but not going to pay deputies out there to protect us. It's an issue that this commission has to react on, I think, quickly. And once again, that's an issue for public safety, and I'm not opposed to this, and I'll vote to support it, but expect some. And I think it might be rightfully so. That kickback might be rightfully so. I understand this is coming from within our own budget, and there's a difference there, and I understand that as well. But I just can't help but immediately draw the comparison in my mind that we're raising this pay just because. And saying, okay, let's make sure we have enough cafeteria workers. But then on the other hand, we're not making sure that we have enough deputies to keep safe and secure. I've got thought in my mind, and I don't know how to get rid of it, other than to say we need public safety issue. I think we are, and I know Mayor Ketron last night spoke to that, but it still looks like that's probably several months off, and it also still looks like we're probably not going to get that to happen until our next budget year. And I think that's the big difference, is that there are no budgeted funds for the sheriffs, but there are budgeted funds that we can rely on within this own budget, and it's not going to cost us any more money. So I understand that, but once again, I'm going on, and I apologize for that. But there is a comparison there from last night's meeting at Public Safety to this night's meeting, Health and Education, that we're short acting immediately to this, not acting immediately. On my soapbox, and I apologize for that. I understand the need. And do you think that raising this is going to solve the problem?
I don't know if it is solved, but I think it'll close some gaps.
We did with our
With a
With the
part-time?
social media campaign
Oh,
that we
okay.
just did for the recruitment, he's got 21 applicants the very next day. So
So it remains to be seen, but we're seeing a little movement on that side.
So part-time and full-time paid the same hourly rate?
Just the full-time gets the benefits and stuff.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips, you did sort of talk your way back around to the comment I wanted to make, which is, back in May, when we were almost finished with the budget process, Public Safety made the recommendation that all of Public Safety needed an 8% increase, and we were just too far along in the budget process. We couldn't back up and factor that in. I've never forgotten that, and I don't think any commissioner here has forgotten that is a definite need. And I do think the situation is slightly different here in that we have money in the budget. We can do something with it now to solve this problem. If we had the money in the budget right now, we'd solve the public safety problem too. I agree.
I think the answer to my concern is, as I've talked through it, I've kind of come up with it myself, but we're working on it. And I know the mayor's office is working on it real hard. And I know that the Public Safety Committee is also working on it very hard. Human Resources is working on it. But it just seems like it's not something that we can do when we can do this. You know what I mean? It
Right.
just-
I do think it's also one of those situations where just because we can't solve both problems doesn't mean we don't solve one of them. So I think that's kind of the approach. Any more questions? Commissioner Key?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I think we pose a slippery slope if we start having moratoriums on raises because we can't supply one. I mean, I do admire that you came in with your own solution, which is your own funding. That certainly doesn't mean that we're not in line with public safety following suit. But I just think we should. It's not. We can't place blame on the school board because public safety doesn't have the budget available.
Yeah, I think we all agree that our public safety is very important, deserve raises. I'm not taking offense to it, Commissioner. I understand where you're coming from.
Any more questions, comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Cook? Mr. Key?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes, thank you. All right. What do you want to talk about next? Resolution, okay.
next is, we have before you a resolution for a temporary transfer of funds from the General Purpose School Fund to the Federal Project Fund for the fiscal years ending June 30th, 2022, 23, and 24. And we brought you a similar resolution in the springtime when we had ESSER II grant funds awarded to us. And as you can see, we have the amounts of it's very similar to the federal funding that the county general is receiving. At the time that we came in the spring to request an additional $1 million to a transfer of funds from the General Purpose School Fund to the Federal Projects Fund, it was $1 million. And that was approved by this commission and the school board. Basically what that is we have a separate Federal Projects Fund, and it is on a reimbursement scheme for the federal funds, just like the federal funds that are coming down on the county side. We have currently $2 million in fund balance of local funds in that Federal Projects Fund for cash flow purposes until the draws of the federal money come down. When we requested the additional $1 million of transferred funds from the General Purpose School Fund to the Federal Project Fund this spring, we were aware of the grant award for the ESSER II, which was, it says right there on the resolution, $19,491,000. After that, and after that, that second $1 million was approved by this commission as a transfer, to the Federal Projects Fund for cash flow purposes. We then were subsequently awarded ESSER 3 grant funding of the $43,774,000. What we're asking tonight is that, and I spoke, before I put this in for you, of course, this was something that Lisa Nolan and I were discussing, and Ted Beatty, because, of course, with the trustee being the banker of the county, he is very, concerned with cash flow of our funds. What we're requesting tonight is an additional $3 million from the General Purpose School Fund to be transferred to the Federal Project Fund balance as a temporary transfer for cash flow purposes. This would not be like the first $2 million. What this would be is when we have large drawdowns of funds, once again, we are spending the money first, requesting the federal money on a reimbursement. With this large amount of money, when we're doing capital projects and a large payroll, like a bonus, the bonus, you'll see the same thing on your side. We did half of the $1,000 bonus that was provided to our employees for the additional duties for COVID. We drew that down, and that was close to $5 million. So obviously, we needed some additional funds, local funds, until the reimbursement came down. So what this will do is authorize us to be able to pull over, for cash flow purposes, up to $3 million additional from the Federal General Purpose School Fund once the funds from the state, the federal money, comes down, and that's typically within 7-10 days from the time that our reimbursement is approved. Those funds would then go back to the General Purpose School Fund balance where that came from. So this is not a request to just send $3 million over to sit. It's to just cash flow purposes to cover until the reimbursement comes down. And that's the request we have tonight.
So in essence, you're going to write a check on Friday for $1 million, but you don't have enough in the bank to cover it, but you know that somebody's giving you $5 million the following Friday, so you need to make sure you can cover that so the check doesn't bounce on Tuesday, right? Is that a pretty simple way to put it?
But but I like the way he said it, but I mean, it's, the draw, once again, because it's a reimbursement, especially when you're talking about payroll, or if you've got a vendor, a contractor sitting there like, I need my funds drawn. This just going to provide the cash flow for that. When we did that additional bonus check, that bonus check for our employees for the additional COVID duties, as was approved, my federal project accountant told me she'd been there 26 years doing that job. She goes, that's the largest one-time draw of federal funds that she's ever done. So that's the point for this is not asking for money that's not going to turn around and just come back.
So the only way you could lose the money on a permanent basis is if the feds decided not to do it, and that's highly, highly unlikely. We depend on that reimbursement every day, right?
I'm going to have that approved before we ever encumber the money. Yes, sir. Back to your first point. No, we're not doing that. No.
Do you have a motion?
I need a motion.
If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion from the commission.
Do we have a motion tonight to?
Yes, Doug read his recommended motion, which is to make the transfer for the temporary funds. And so I just need someone from Health and Ed to make that recommendation.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Will you give us a roll call?
Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook. Come back to her. Commissioner Cook. Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, what I passed out in front of you, are we ready?
Yes, we're ready here, sir.
All right, what I passed out in front of you is just a proposed initial draft of the new funding formula that's being proposed. It may or may not come to fruition this next fiscal year. We don't know. We're still working on it. I think I have one more meeting that I'll be going to online on Friday, and we'll know more. This is not all-inclusive, but I want you to look at that little pier there, and this kind of tells us a little bit about how this student allocated formula works. Of course, we'll still be using our average daily membership to generate, how many students were there, so forth and so on. But we start off with a base. And as you can see there, the base is not only state money, but it's local money. One of the things, if you look down to the last bullet point at the bottom of the first page, is the local contribution should have a 5-year runway with the maintenance of effort requirements being maintained. Now, one of the things about this funding body, we've always met our maintenance of effort in, every year and above and beyond. Some rural areas, once they get this additional funding, it's going to be difficult for the local to, just the first year to meet the maintenance of effort. So there's going to be a runway there for 5 years to build up. It does say there in that first bullet, districts should receive at least as much state funding as they would through the current BEP. So that's our base. Then you go into the next is the weighting, and by the weighting, and we'll look at this later as we go through this page here by page. You got the weighting where it's basically based on multiple things that create a more need for students, whether it's students with disabilities, whether it's students from impoverished homes, you name it. Next is the direct funding that you get, and then quite frankly, this is things that already in categories are in fixed cost, if you will. And then there's going to be the outcomes. There will be some incentivizing here in terms of school districts and in terms of meeting some metrics. On the next page, this is not all-inclusive, but the base primarily includes what you see there: educator salaries, nurses, counselors, school-based supports, RTI, specific needs of the district, technology, coordinated health, you name it. And this is not all-inclusive, quite frankly, because we don't know what that will look like. The next page kind of points out in that second tier what weights primarily look at, and that multiplier effect. This would be our Title I students, our students with disabilities, our ESL students, those kind of things. Now, you will notice, however, on the last bullet, this will be weighted heavily, which means that multiplier will be higher than some, okay? The next page kind of goes over what I just got through saying. It varies. It will vary according to those things that you see there. Students with disabilities, gifted English learners, 504 students, dyslexia plans, you name it. So there will be a lot there as we go forward to look at and how it would impact us. The next page brings up charter schools. Now, one of the things that looks appealing right now is the weight comparability, light. Currently I think it says it would impact 42,186 students across the state of Tennessee. But right now the weight of it would be very light. Okay, the next page, direct funding. I like that where it says fastest growing. Those that systems that have significant enrollment growth within the school community warrants same year support. That's new to us. Normally our growth lagged almost a year behind, but now we would get it as we see the growth materialize from the past year. Tutoring, this is going to be there for a while as we look at the learning loss and trying to bring our students up to grade level. And it's going to be an emphasis on college and career technical education, so I like seeing that also. So that's some good stuff there. Now, keep in mind, like I said, it's not all inclusive. Now, some of the things that have been tossed around as far as incentivizing outcomes for districts is literacy, the percentage of students that third grade students are reading on grade level. Ready to graduate indicator outcomes, those are the students that have a 21 or higher on their ACT, or 1,060 or higher on their SAT, or they are passing AP exams with their qualifying scores, Cambridge exams, also CLEP courses, getting CLEPing out of college courses, earning college credit, in industry certification, if they pass the exam, and the number that I think this past year we had like 1,200 industry certifications. It more than doubled itself. We want to continue to do more than that. The International Baccalaureate, passing those exams, dual enrollment, passing the course, local dual credit, passing the course, statewide dual credit, passing the course. Also CTE completers, those in work-based learning and apprenticeships. And this is one I found this kind of interesting, the FAFSA completion, you know. I thought that was pretty interesting because that is the form we fill out to get federal dollars for those that qualify. And I mean, that would be pretty good. I think we currently somewhere around on our seniors, perhaps maybe 80% right now. Does that sound about right? 80? We have been higher in the past, though. Any questions? That was a fast movement through there, but quite frankly, this is going to be very fluid. But there are some things that will be what we just looked at in that plan.
Mr. Gurley?
Do you expect this to be passed in the current legislature, or do you think it'll go another year? What's your feeling?
I would like for it to go another year. I think it needs to be studied out longer. You know, one of the things that concerns me, I think this, now, and Doug and I have had this conversation before, we know a lot of our, a lot of our counties, school districts, you know, in the smaller counties, they're not growing. And this past year, they were held harmless as far as their financial, obligation. And even though they're contracting. So what they're trying to do is put more money out, and this will assist them, but eventually, I think I had a conversation with Representative Baum here about 2 or 3 weeks ago. What happens when the economy tanks? You see what I'm saying? You'd have to take back, I do understand the thought process in it, and I think the student allocated process does sound good. You want the money to follow students. And it makes sure that everything is equitable. If a student has a disability that is necessary to, that you have to fund more, then that's okay with me. It goes with the student.
So the answer to the question is nobody knows.
I don't think anyone, I think perhaps someone knows, but it's not us,
Mayor? Yeah.
The only thing I agree with you, Mr. Spurlock, it probably needs to go another year to refine it and get the rough edges off. However, this is the end of the General Assembly 2 years, and you'll have some new people coming in, which this group may decide to push it through. But as we don't have a clue. Those are the two options I see, Some pushing back, say no, it needs more studies. Some saying no, let's push it through. Maybe you can get some monitor from the different associations, Tennessee School Board Association, right. Tennessee Superintendent Association.
I think as we wrap up, we're going to be wrapping up, and just as soon as that information is provided, I think we'll probably get a good clue. I think we will probably know sooner than later. I think it will be one of those things. They won't wait till the last of the day to do it. It'll be, yeah.
Mr. Spurlock, is there anything in this current framework that you wish was different or that you had advocated for differently? There's just a few. What I like is getting the money up front. As the kids come in, you get the money. It's not lagging behind. I also like where outside the BEP. That's one of the things that our county has always done is funded, these unfunded mandates outside the BEP. So that would be included in the base, You're feeling pretty good about the direction it's going in?
Oh,
just
right.
Needs more time.
I just need more time. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Any questions about BEP formula? Next bullet point.
Okay, let's see, we're going to the,
Charter schools, yeah.
okay. I'm going to ask our coordinator to step up and our assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction.
And just to refresh everybody's memory, this committee and Board of Ed, everybody was copied on just a shotgun approach of questions that we had. So I'm just going to let you, I'm not going to go through each of these individually. I'm just going to let you kind of walk us through it. If there's any gaps in the information, then we'll just open it up for questions.
Actually, I left my phone over there, so if you don't mind reading each one of them for me, that would be helpful, and I'll address them from there if you'll just give me a point to it.
Okay, so the first one that I had was the, well, I'm going to skip the bullet A.
Yeah, I remember bullet A.
Yes, yes. Okay, so, okay, you will know this one.
Let me give you an overview of where we are right now.
Well, let's go straight to this one, because I think this is one that's hanging out there, and that is, what's the likelihood that Rethink Forward will agree to let us be their authorizing agent?
0. We actually, as we are, one of the things that is in Tennessee Code annotated is that the district, the LEA, has to agree to it, and as well the charter school has to agree to it. We were notified last night through Mr. Reed's office. We received a letter that notified us that they are taking their option to decline for LEA for Rutherford County to be their LEA, and so they're going to have the Tennessee Charter Commission as their LEA, and that's an option that is allowed to them. We've actually had a very good meeting with them. We set up several meetings. We reached out within 3 days of the notification for an initial meeting. We had to send a request twice to set up that meeting. We're then told to give us some time and they'll get back with us. We had our first meeting on Friday, so we were already 14, 15 days into the 30-day window by the time that they replied to us, because we had 30 days to make an agreement. But the meeting did go well. We had a 30, 40 minutes. Went very well. It was very cordial. And they offered that, although they weren't interested in us being their LEA, they were interested in us serving for contracted services. So if we wanted our bus contractors or to feed through nutrition, they were interested in using us for that.
So talk to us a little bit about sort of where we go from here in that relationship. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to hit on part of the charter schools report involved, I think they talked about Rutherford County schools having a flawed process, and I want to assure you that that was absolutely not the case. We started meeting, and if there's anything we are guilty of, it is that we followed Tennessee Code Annotated to the exact letter of the law with every rules and regulations that we possibly could find in old state board policy, in new Tennessee Charter Commission policy. If you'll recall, this Tennessee Public Charter Commission did not exist until January 1st of last year. It was all held by the Tennessee State Board of Education up until January 1st. And so we went through, we actually spoke numerous times with the Public Charter Commission. We attached, we had to do a public records request through and submit that through the application process and the review. We submitted our email documentation where we communicated with the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission as part of that. And so that was unfortunate, to say the least, that comment was there, because I assure you, even in the process of finding about what category applicant they were, where they accused us of stalling, we met with their attorneys and discussed that with their attorneys and the State Board of Education as well, and the Tennessee School Board Association. So it wasn't just a haphazard approach that we decided to do. It was ongoing with Mr. Reed and with our team and our school board as well. Yeah.
There was one assertion that the Commissioner of Education stated that we did not look at the application appropriately and make the right determination. That's false. I had sent, I think, Commissioner, you may have received the email, where the Commissioner of Education actually said that there was some issues with the application, but perhaps it was because the TDOE's application was filled with ambiguity, and that she would go back and amend this application going forward. So I think that was more than just stretching the truth on that, and it did call into question the integrity of our school system and these people that worked on our committee to make this thing as seamless as possible. Another thing was communication. As Dr. Sullivan has told you, we reached out to him immediately after we found out that, that we had been overturned with the appeal, and we didn't get communication for several days. And that's what they accused us of not communication. There was a lot of phone calls to them initially in the beginning, and no returns. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
So then I think one of the next question was, what have we learned from this process, and what are things that we're going to do differently? Because this was, of course, our first time, I believe, in 6 or 7 years going through a charter review. One of those, in following the scoring rubric, it talks about how an interview with the applicant is not necessary or required. And we took that by literal, what it said in definition, that it wasn't necessary or required, so we followed the application. In since, we have found out that although it's not required, that is common practice for most districts. Dr. Chastain was our right-hand person serving alongside our committee and served on our committee. She has kind of assumed that role of charter school coordinator, if you will, because we realized we needed somebody to be able to address that. She's not working just on charter school, it's all school choice from our various school choice programs. We have 2 applicants. We actually had 3 letters of intent. One was by Rethink Forward, the same group. In our conversation on Friday, we point blank asked, are you applying to run a second school? And the answer was no, that was just a placeholder. So we will have 2 applications that we will start to review on February 1st. One of those is from Springs Charter Schools. They are based out of California. The other one is for American Classical, and they are based out of Michigan. And so those are the 2. Dr. Chastain has met with them on the phone or discussed things with them numerous times, even as much as helping one of them through how do we follow through on the application process and what does my governing board need to look like. And so that was definitely a lesson learned of it's not an adversarial relationship from the beginning. It is truly something we need to do to try to help partner.
I do still have some questions about how the Rethink Forward relationship is going to work. These are still Rutherford County students, right? And so I'm not clear on how they're going to recruit, how they're going to enroll, how any of that's going to work. And I know with the state being their authorizing agent, we don't get to look at rolls or records or anything. So I'm just trying to think through what's the smoothest way possible.
Yeah, they do actually, can accept students on first come, first choice. Yeah, they can do it, and it's actually the Charter Commission that will have access to their enrollment numbers, anything pertaining to the needs of the student. There's the state program called EIS that goes direct to the state. They will actually invoice, and you correct me if I'm wrong, they will invoice the state for our part of the funding.
That's correct.
You want to step up here?
Spoke with the State Department of Education, their local finance director, to this afternoon. If we, the LEA, the local LEA, was the authorizer for this charter school, then just like we were telling you earlier, they would actually send us an invoice for the state and local portion of the BEP for the ADM that they would have and they would report. The only amount that would be withheld at the state level would be a small amount for the BP capital expenditures for like repairs of the buildings. That would actually go directly to them from the state, but the rest would be invoiced to us from the charter school. But because this one is authorized by the state charter school commission, they will actually withhold state BEP funds to the amount of both the state and local match. So we will be shorted in our BEP that we have from the state. It'll be the local match as well, that amount.
Okay, so we won't be invoiced, we just will never receive the dollars.
That is correct.
And then does this have any effect on our maintenance of effort?
It's a good question.
That was always one of the things that concerned me was, let's say this new program costs $5 million. Is that, is that $5 million on top of what we budgeted, or is that does that mean now our MOE is less $5 million?
What we do know, if they hit their current projected enrollment, we're looking at somewhere about 1.7 million for the local. Yes. And 1.7 million for the local.
Okay. Okay, but we're still not sure how the state's going to hold us accountable for MOE, how that number's going to play into that. Is that correct?
I don't think we do. Absolutely not.
Yeah, we probably need to find that out. And I think it would also be good if there's some way, Doug, for you to begin tracking what these expenditures separately, so that we have some idea of, because there's a whole conversation about, could this be a relief valve? That was what one of our reps said, is that this could be a relief valve to overcrowding. We need to evaluate all of that.
We actually, we had that conversation, and they were amenable to it. I mean, they did say, yeah, so there are some, but when you really look at it, it would almost have to be, they'd have to take 400 from this school.
Right, very directed, yeah.
Or at least 100 to make it actually
impactful,
yeah.
So do you think the two new applications that we're getting, that we can try to work with them to help target them like we're talking about?
Well, what Classic, what was the Redeemer Classic? American Classic. We've already had a conversation. I mean, it was very early in on the LOI, and they've talked to us, and we received their application actually today. So I think that's going to be, they will work with us.
Commissioner Blair has a question.
I'd like to commend Dr. Sullivan on his leadership in this review process. I don't know if you kept a running total of the deficiencies from the application, and it may be too long to discuss tonight. Okay. One thing that did disturb me about this process was the number of waivers that they're asking the state to hold them harmless with, that does not apply to us as a public school. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
So as a charter school, they are eligible to file waivers on multitudes of items, from having a licensed educational leader leading their building to what curriculum resources that they use. And I think when we look at school choice, and this is a different conversation, but as a school district, we may have resources that we want to use that the State Board of Education or the Tennessee Department of Education does not approve, and therefore we're not allowed to use those. That is not the world that a charter school would have to follow. They can file waivers and will file waivers. In fact, some of the ones on their application that they used were ones that the state did not approve, but we don't have those options. They are also allowed for licensed teachers if they are in a shortage. From teacher tenure, they do not have to offer teacher tenure. You pretty much think of a waiver, they can come up with a waiver to ask that. But I believe there are 10 in Tennessee Code Ante they're allowed to point blank ask that are approved. But usually it comes down to curricular resources, tenure, teacher tenure, and as far as having a licensed principal in the building.
If I could, I want to introduce Dr. Chastain here. She's already hit the ground running. She may hit, if we get any more charters in here, she may hit the road.
That's it. Thank you. I do want to say one thing about using charters to our advantage as a district too. The more we learn about this process, and we did have a great meeting, and in order to keep the students of Rutherford County kind of at the forefront, we do have the option that we're working on now to kind of post a document of noted need. So future charter applications wouldn't be required to hit all those points, but it is heavily favored that they would look at that and then start, if we say this area of the county needs additional support, they would look at that as a place to start. And we're kind of doing that informally with the groups that have already applied for this year. So in those conversations, when we get those applications, we will bring them in, like Dr. Sullivan said, and talk to them about what we know we need and how they can help us with that. So we have learned. It was adversarial, and I think that's okay. And we'll move forward on behalf of the county. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have you all talked to Davidson County about their charter schools?
Yeah. Yes, we have. And there's also, the state has actually put together a group of people that are working in districts as potential authorizers, where we can kind of exchange ideas and see what works, what doesn't. How do you approach? I mean, we even reached out to them before our conversation with Rethink Forward. Just, this is kind of awkward. How do you approach a conversation when we've denied them, and then even enter into a discussion on potentially being their authorizer? So yes, we are in contact with other districts and best practices that they've seen moving forward too. Yeah.
Commissioner Blair?
With all the deficiencies and the waivers that this entity they've had and they're requesting, what is the position of the state as far as holding our public school system harmless if they tank? Because I don't want that to happen to our children or our students, but I am concerned about their ability to educate our students with all of these issues that came with the application and are ongoing.
They have a 10-year agreement with the Tennessee Charter Commission. At any point, either side or the Charter Commission can revoke their charter based on performance. And what you'll find when you're looking at those schools that are performing in areas that are performing are going to usually perform pretty well. So we would anticipate, even in Rutherford County with our students and our track record, they're still ultimately our kids and our community. So we're going to do whatever we can to help them be successful. They will not, because the Charter Commission is the authorizer in the LEA, they are technically their district, and so we will not be held accountable for their results. We talked about growth and doing those needs a little bit. Just to give you perspective size, American Classical in their first year is offering to their total enrollments 264 is what they're looking at. And then for the other one, I believe they're at 150. And so you're looking at 404. Just to give you perspective, from January 18th last year to January 18th this year, we added 2,008 students. And so 20% roughly.
Commissioner Gurley?
I don't want to get into a discussion of this tonight, but I would like to kind of make a statement and reiterate something that I've brought up in times past. My mom taught 20 years down in Laverne, the area where this school is proposed to go. So I'm pretty familiar with the area. Commissioner Blair is very familiar with the area. It's changed a lot in the last years. I'm not opposed to school choice. I'm not opposed necessarily to charter schools. But what I am opposed is an appointed body of people being able to bypass the whole governmental process and draw taxpayer funds. Let's say I live out by Stewart's Creek School, as most of you know. Say I convince a bunch of people around there we'd be better off if we had a private security agency. So we're going to get something up. State's going to pass something and appoint some kind of board. We apply to that board, and all of a sudden we're going to take, say, a fourth or a tenth or whatever amount of Sheriff's Department funding, and we're going to have our private security agency. But we're going to ask for a waiver from the LETA certification. We're going to ask for a waiver on you name it. And so remember, these are private companies that are for profit. And so I could make a few dollars by hiring $10 an hour people to patrol the streets around Stewart's Creek area and pull a few $1 million out of county funds for the Sheriff's Department. By the way, being chief of that, I would draw a good salary. So, you know, but this board wouldn't report to anybody. And I just don't see how under our laws, and like I said, this is a topic for discussion, not here tonight, but I just want to reiterate that I see something fundamentally constitutionally flawed in the whole process of this whole appointed board that didn't exist until less than 2 years ago, all of a sudden being able to bypass this body, being able to bypass the school board body, and in essence bypass everybody to provide this so-called enhanced service to the children of Rutherford County. So I really think that's something that, not for tonight, but it needs to be thought about and appropriately considered as to where do we go from here in that regard. Is this something that's good for the state of Tennessee? Who set this up? And what laws provide for that? And does it meet all the criteria that we afforded under the Constitution of the state of Tennessee? So, like I said, I don't want to get into a discussion of that, but I do want to reiterate it and let the public know that there's potentially flaws in this whole process.
And I would just add on that, this, in state statute, I agree with a lot of things. They do have to be non-for-profit. They can partner with a for-profit, but they have to be non-for-profit. And even as kind of you were hitting on, the executive director of the Tennessee Public Charter Commission has a review team, and they upheld our board's findings as well. But the commission then did not follow those findings. And so those are 3 groups that kind of went with that. So thank you.
Mayor, did you have something?
I did. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Got a question for the doctor. In the event that the state is going to be the authorizing agency, correct? If they acquire debt and they close their doors at some point in time, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, who is responsible for that debt?
Charter commission, the charter group is, the charter actual school and their entity is, as in TCA, charter school would be required for their debt.
Okay. I received a call today from Jim Rye. Jim is the executive director for TEA in Nashville, and he was talking about this charter school application. Not that he's totally against charter schools, nor are we. It's this one who only had $5,000 in their financial statement. But he shared with me, and I shared it with Mr. Spurlock prior to the meeting, that in the event that when we bond and we go to the market for bond, then we have to share that just like we have to share with the city of Murfreesboro. Is that correct?
We believe so, yes. Yeah. Yep.
Smaller, but still.
Yeah, what percentage do it? He didn't tell me what that was.
A fraction of a percent, yeah.
Rate band would be.
Weighted band. You know, I've got some concern there. You know, we just acquired, finally for the first time in history, AAA bond rating, and then we go to the bond market to build more schools and additions and everything else, and we got to share with this group, and they may go out of business, and with no control.
We share your concerns.
I have a couple more questions, but I just want to make sure that everybody gets heard. So, Mr. Phillips, yes.
It's a quick question, and it's kind of follow-up from some of the concerns or questions that we've had over the last few months as this thing has kind of pushed forward. Gurley used the word deficiencies. That part of their process, identifying deficiencies, and I've never heard of a deficiency in the Rutherford County school system. I'm not sure, but when I was going to school, you know, an A or an A+ was a pretty good score. And I don't know how you improve on that. So what did their charter convince the state board that we have deficiencies here in Rutherford County that we can't address ourselves? What was there that part of the process?
That changed on January 1st, 2021. There no longer has to be a deficiency. Up until January 1st, 2021, you had to have a deficiency or a school in the bottom 5% to have a charter eligible. Now any school district is eligible for charters, and it is not just Rutherford County that has charter applicants, it is many of them. But that was a concern we shared with the Public Charter Commission was, were we rigorous in our assessment of their application? Absolutely, because that's what we expect of our students in our district here.
Just a quick follow-up on that while you're still there. Since that changed January 1st, what about their application? Their application was filed prior to that. So what happened to that?
Their application was actually due February 1st, 2021. Their letter of intent was under the old Tennessee Code annotated, and in that actual section, it has stricken that on December 31st, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. this subsection is removed and is replaced with this subsection. I can't recall the exact number, but the timelines were set up very strategically.
I'll follow up with the meeting that was held, what was it, January the 14th? With the commission, 7th, felt like the 14th anyway. There were some things that they did bring out. The commission did bring out on some contingencies for them to open up that they would have to take care of. So it wasn't, I guess, I kind of felt like we were, the old saying, Tennessee got so mad at Alabama that they beat the heck out of Vanderbilt. We kind of felt that way after we got off that call. But they did kind of poke him a little bit before it was over with, but it wasn't what needed to be done. I'll just leave it there.
Are there any other questions? One of the things we were concerned about was the low number, I think it might have even been 0, of special needs children that they accounted for. How's that going to be addressed, do you know?
We did talk to them about that, and they were agreeable that they would be addressing that. And that was one of the things that was mentioned in the meeting that they had with with Tess Hart. What's her name? Tess Stovall, the chairperson.
And that's one of the...
Use the microphone, please. Yeah.
That is one of the considerations we had in discussing with them when we approached, should we be the authorizer? And with that, if they were to open this year, we just didn't feel like that was a good faith effort on behalf of all of us, that they would be ready to serve those students. That's right. So that's why we stepped back as authorizer.
You had a committee that reviewed this. So what's going to be the process going forward for new applications that come in? And I understand you're going to need staff positions as well. So can you kind of walk us through that?
We actually have one. We repurposed our Chastain for this year. She'll stay on as choice and charter, but she's also the science coordinator for 612. 912, okay. And we do have one position that we're going to do work because financially we need someone in that position too. So we'll be seeking that. I think we learned a lot from this process, but I think, and quite frankly, I think as we go forward, I think there's some opportunities for the charter schools to assist us in what we're facing right now, which is growth. And I think the quicker we can make that work, the quicker we can solve some problems. Now, I will agree with, I'm going to throw out what Commissioner Gurley said. I think there need to be representation from that local area in which they're placed in the school, whether it's one or whatever. But there needs to be local representation. That's obviously something that can be handled through legislation.
I'm glad you brought that point up, because that was actually one of the questions that I had going into this, which is, through our lessons learned, the Charter Commission was not shy at all about giving us feedback. Would it be appropriate for us to find some way to give them feedback to say, your applicants need to reflect the population of that student community, including, Title I, SPED, all the demographics? So are there things that we should be putting, and again, genuinely in a good faith effort to say, we learned from this process, we think you can learn from this process, let's improve it by this metrics?
Absolutely. I think Dr. Chastain and Dr. Sullivan and we've talked about that, and I know Dr. Chastain has had that conversation with the commission even.
Yeah. within as far as the process, there, it is what Dr. Sullivan said to begin with. I mean, we followed the process this year. We can all feel good about that we did follow that process. And we'll do the same thing this coming year with these two applications. And within those applications, they should be, by the way those metrics are set up, they have to meet or exceed all of those measures for us to approve them. And it does state in there that they are targeting those populations and that they've accounted for them. So it is that is within those applications, and we'll report on that for all of the applications moving forward as well.
Is there anything, though, that, because again, I think about it back to like a glitch ordinance. You know, you put something in place, and once it begins to really be applied in real life, you learn, maybe we should have tweaked this or that. My question is not so much us as it is there feedback we need to be giving the State Charter School Commission? Because if you're a hammer, the whole world's a nail. You know, if you're a charter school commission, you think charter schools need to be in every community. So what can we do to help them be better on their side of this?
Well, you know, I go back to some of the deficiencies in the application, and even on second try, to put, I mean, you copy and paste and you put Metro Davidson Public Schools.
Right, twice.
Twice. I mean, I don't know. It sounds to me like that you're expecting a rubber stamp. It just sounds to me like that. Like I said, just during the conversations we've had with Hillsdale, it's been a lot more, interaction between all of us.
I do have one suggestion. If you're looking
Yeah,
for a suggestion.
throw a suggestion
Might have
there.
some more. But one thing is, and if you watch that hearing or meeting, they talked about that there was no evidence of community support. There weren't, they had a list of names of people that had engaged with the survey, but we didn't even know what the survey questions were. We didn't know how they answered on the survey. There weren't people listed that were local to say, we want this school, we're excited about this school. And the comments from the commission were centered around the fact that that wasn't required. So if that would be something I think that would be near and dear to all of us, is if that could transition to that as a required piece, I think that would be helpful.
Quick suggestion that I would have, and again, for all of their suggestions, they have to be in policy or rules and regulations. I'm not sure they would make modifications. One would to follow the way Tennessee Code Annotated is set up to approve charter schools would be number one, but more importantly was to have the LEA involved in the interview. And so the charter school is granted an interview as part of the appeal process. The LEA or the committee is not granted an interview. We asked, we're never given an interview, but that is very hard to not show some sort of genuineness to one side or the other when it's not even in regulations or policy for them to interview the LEA.
Commissioner Blair? Commissioner Gurley?
I think any letter that we draft in the future not only maybe needs to go to our legislative delegation, because as I said before, I think this Charter School Commission, we already have a Department of Education set up. We have a Commissioner of Education. We have a State Board of Education, Higher Education Commission, et cetera, et cetera. Why did we need another appointed board on this particular subject? It needs to go to our legislature and let them, and the governor, and let them go back and correct this in the legislation. Otherwise, it needs to be challenged in a court of law as to why it was set up like this and why it's not representative. And I think Commissioner Blair said it. I mean, if a charter school can offer our children something that they don't get right now in the Rutherford County school system, then there's a place probably for them. And I can think of some areas, but this one didn't. And all it's going to be doing is siphoning off tax dollars. And so I think we need to do something, whether it's legal, whether it's writing a letter and putting pressure on because whatever law they're basing this on, this charter commission was created by our legislature. Or it was created by the Board of, maybe you can clarify that. Was it created by the Department of Education?
It was created by the commission. The Charter Commission was created by the governor.
By the governor. I think that's who we need to write the letter to.
Yes.
But you can pass a lot of laws, but they don't all muster constitutionality.
One of the things going forward we could do, because we don't anticipate this being the last charters that come in, is perhaps get a commissioner on the committee that does the evaluation of the application. That could be something we could do.
Commissioner Phillips, you had something?
Now, when you talk to Mr. Blair, he may say, stay away from her.
He's still thinking about invoicing me for hours.
Commissioner Phillips, yeah.
This question and/or comment is probably on a lot of people's minds out there, just regular Rutherford County people. If you present a plan to us and we say, it's a good plan, not going to put that burden on the taxpayers, so the answer is no, you can't build that. Have options that maybe are available to you. What if we took that this further step and just said, okay, they've made this ruling, it wasn't unanimous, the chairman of the commission, Charter Commission, was not supportive of it, so we're just not going to do it. What would happen? Anybody know?
I'm going to take a wild guess here. They could withhold our funds for those kids that they enroll. They could probably do that. I mean, the funds could be taken right out of the state funding.
That's what they're going to do with this.
He said,
Yeah.
With the, back with the funding, I see where you're going with, but it's, because the state charter commission is going to be the authorizer, we won't get the invoice. They'll just take the money, including the local match amount, right from what the state would have sent down to us. So, I mean, there's no, I'm not going to pay your invoice. It's literally the state's going to send it directly to the charter school.
So just saying, I tell you no, just telling them no is not an option, and force their hand to do that. And then what would be the outcry? What would be the outcry from 375,000 people in Rutherford County? What would be the outcry there? There are, I'm just not 100% sure that, I have any of these answers. But there comes a point in time where the state is doing certain things to us that won't allow us to raise funds or raise taxes other than property taxes. They won't allow us to make our own decisions when we've been running the type of an educational system that's the envy of the state. They won't allow us to make those local decisions. What's happening, our state complains about federal mandates. We don't want any more federal mandates. But just think that next step down, what's happening right now, the state is putting state mandates on counties. And we've complained about that for a number of years. Is there a point where we draw that line in the sand and say, no, you've not proved to us that this charter school is going to improve the education of any students in Rutherford County, so don't care what you say, we're going to say no. And if they do, if they say, well, we're going to withhold those funds, just say, well, then if you do that, then we're going to have to start closing some schools. What they're going to do? There's going to be, I don't know, maybe some price to pay, maybe, but then again, how do you know? How do you know the state is saying, oh, well, we're going to withhold those funds and not let you educate the kids in the county? And I just don't know. It's just a crazy thought, but at some point in time, you tell your kids no. I want this new $750 iPhone. No. The answer is no. And I just don't know if there's, I don't know. But the whole process to me, and we've said it numerous times, the whole process to me is that we've busted our butts over the last 30 years to fund the education in Rutherford County without putting a heavy burden on the taxpayers. We've figured out ways to do that. And it's a combination with our school board and our county government to do that. And it's been a good marriage. Now we're having someone to tell us what we have to do with zero input. Our input is that show us the need. And I'm not sure that they've even done that at this point in time. So before you do it, we're not going to fund it. So before you do it, show me the need and how you're going to address that need in a way that we can address it. I'm not sure where we go with this or anything, but this thought, I know, is not just in my mind, but it's in other folks' mind that's out there as well. This county is exploding. Let me just tell you what was talked about yesterday at our planning commission. There are 960 buildable lots in Rutherford County right now approved. All you got to do is pull a permit, build a house.
In the unincorporated area. That's not counting inside the city limits.
Exactly right,
Yeah.
in the unincorporated areas. And guess how many is in the that's entering the process? 5,600. 5,600. Where's the next charter school going to come from? And what kind of input are we going to have? I don't know. I know that there's a place for charter schools. I know that there are counties and cities that are failing and having problems. In my mind, that's what that charter system is supposed to do, is to go and help those schools that are failing. But I've never heard, and maybe it's there, I've just not heard it. Show me where we're not educating the kids in our county better than any other system in this state.
Well, and as a follow-up comment to that, I read their executive director, I read her analysis of our arguments, and I really felt like she was punishing us for being fiscally responsible. They cited our AAA bond rating, our large fund balance, healthy fund balance that we end with, and so it was almost like saying, well, because you've been good stewards of this money, we can pick your pocket. We can take that money out and you're not going to feel it. If our money had been a mess, then they would have turned it down. Well, if our money had been a mess, then probably our schools were a mess. So the logic just doesn't track. So, but you're exactly right. We don't get a say in this.
One of the things we've seen over the years is primarily we know where our charter schools are located in some of the larger metropolitan areas, Nashville, Memphis, some in Hamilton County, and maybe one in Knox County. I think what you're seeing now is it's, Clarksville, Montgomery has had some apply. So I think if you're asking me, I think it's perhaps maybe this body could reach out to those. Collectively as a voice, it's a lot stronger than just one county,
Good. Thank you all for your patience and attention, and thank you. Any more questions before we let it go? No? Commissioner Blair?
Could we have some other business with the director and before that we end?
Absolutely. I'm sure he'd be glad to stay. Director, we still have some business for you. Director Spurlock? We have some more business for you. Yeah. Commissioner Blair, go ahead.
I'm watching 400 apartments go up on Lowry Street, just down from my office. I'm watching a subdivision being created on Rock Springs Road where Waldron Road comes out, that they're projecting over 600 homes there. And I'm aware that I think the city of Laverne has approved 600 homes on the corner of Blair Road and Waldron. And I'm thinking, where do we have space for all those students that are coming? So, and I know you and the board are doing your due diligence, but my concern is that you may be having to speed up that due diligence, because that is just northern part of the county, and everywhere I drive in my county, seems like my county community is exploding, and I guess at some point in time I'd like to know what that game plan is, because I don't see you having the students. Rock Springs Elementary was just built, just had an addition, and I understand it's
getting
full.
close to capacity. It is.
Okay, and I'm not aware of any other schools in the northern end of the county or through the county that has space right now, and it's just a major concern for me.
We are meeting on Saturday where we'll be discussing our building program, and the board will be looking at some things. One of the things that even now, if we funded 75% of what is in our building program, it would take us, if we had, I'm just throwing that out there, it would take us 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years to build out because of what's going on with the work and supply chain. However, with that said, they're going to keep coming. I mean, we dropped about 1,800 in this year. Of course, a lot of it was due to the holding back for some of the kids that didn't go to kindergarten. But we're growing. I mean, it's a fact of life.
Commissioner Gurley?
Do you have, or are you at liberty to connected your superintendent for construction to a property out in Mount? Did that ever go anywhere, or is it still in discussion?
I'll get with it tomorrow and check on it. Was it in your area?
Yes, on Rocky Fork.
Okay, I'll check with them tomorrow.
Because there's getting fewer and fewer. I mean, they've literally lotted off within a mile or mile and a half of my house, just hundreds of more houses. I just took a little drive Sunday afternoon, like I guess you did, and there's, of course, you're talking about the Gwynn Farm, and I know them as farms. And of course, the Leafs have just sold their farm. It's being cleared out right now. I think you said 1,700 houses eventually, or and apartments, et cetera, over a period of time, or something like that, a 10-year time frame. A whole bunch more out there. You know, Smyrna's extending sewer out. So we think, well, that's kind of close to Stewart's Creek and close to Rocky Ford, because this is the other end of Rocky Ford. But considering the density of housing being built currently, even if things go bust in a year, there's going to be another 1,000 houses built between now and then. And I just kind of, you know, check on that. I don't know what the possibilities were, but there's just fewer and fewer parcels of property. You know, when you go up toward Amelville up there, you know what you've found in times past. There's cave system all underneath there, and when you get to that end, you drill down a few feet and you got a cave. You can't build on top of it because you don't want the whole thing sinking. But there's just fewer and fewer pieces of property, and I can see that Laverne is even more problematic. A lot of houses, but no one's thinking about where to build public infrastructure, be it roads or schools or whatever.
Madam Chairman, just would like to remind everybody that in 2008, when the sky was falling, we still grew, I believe, by 1,100 or 1,200 students, even in one of the worst economic times that we've experienced in a long time. So even if we go bust, it looks like we'll probably still grow.
Agreed.
I would encourage this body to begin tuning in to a lot of the Board of Education meetings. This is the time where they're kind of doing the pre-game work before they bring us a plan. We begin to usually look at capital projects in the spring. This is all in advance of the operational budget, which are two entirely different things. So if you've not been following along, you should do so. They provided to us a current list of enrollment by school, and then also I added on that sheet, they gave us a separate report that had the number of portable classrooms. So I merged those two. We have 154 classrooms in portables. Not 154 portables, because some of those portables are doubles, but we have 154 classes meeting in portables right now. So, and then at some point too, I'm sure will give us the grade band breakout. They usually do that as well, so we can kind of see the trends of where they're growing, not just in the schools themselves. But be paying close attention, because there's going to be a big ask, and we're going to have some tough questions to answer. Right. Is there any more business before this body? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.